How do we get it to the next generation? Well, as I've said before, only about 1/3 of family businesses will successfully transition to the next generation. Why do family businesses fail? Well, there's an article that was written in The Economist several years ago, and I love the way they phrase this. Undoubtedly, family businesses are more complex and difficult to manage than the tiny minority of non-family firms whose governance is the main subject of all of this management research that we hear about. Family firms are frequently more riven with intrigue and visceral hatreds than a medieval court. And for similar reasons, substitute the founder for a medieval monarch, the king or queen, and substitute the professional managers of the business for the courtiers who serve the king or the monarch. And add in a pair of rivalrous heirs with jealous wives and scheming cousins, and you have the perfect recipe for a Shakespearean drama. And boy, if I've seen that, I'll bet you have too, in the sale and transition of family businesses. I've got one going on right now. But true succession begets success. I'll talk about that in a second. But here's a list of some successful family-owned businesses that have transitioned to next generations, not just one generation, but many generations down the line. Wouldn't it be nice if our clients or our family businesses could transition in that way? So I said true succession begets success. What do I mean by that? Well, we know that 75% of all family-owned businesses are usually run by one person or maybe a couple, husband and a wife, or husband and a husband and a wife and a wife. But 75% statistically are single founder type businesses. And those are most of the ones that I deal with. You also will have about 20% as sibling partnerships, which may have been a successful transition from the first generation to the second. And then at the very lowest level, after you've had the sibling transition, you might have 5% in a cousin consortium owned by cousins, the issue of the siblings. But in most cases, it's the family founder. And the hardest part that I have seen in business succession planning for family-owned businesses is understanding that succession is not the event. It's not saying, okay, now it's time to sell or it's time to transition the business, let's do it. It's a process. And so as a process, you have to be able to transition the management and you have to be able to transition the ownership. If you try to do one without the other, you don't have true business succession planning, believe it or not. Now, the founder may not want that. The founder may not want true business succession planning where they're transitioning management and ownership to the next generation because they're losing control of that. And that's usually the greatest reason why business succession planning does not succeed. Founders don't want to give up control. They want to keep their hands in the business somehow, some way. And so the ability to convince them to transition it to the next generation, whether it's professional management or family management, is an extremely difficult task, but one that must be accomplished. The other reason that family businesses don't always thrive into the successive generations is that the next generation may not have the respect that the founder commands for the employees and for the customers of the business. They just may not have the charisma. They also may not want to do anything with the business. They may not want to be involved with the business, which I have in one very large company that we represent right now, where the next generation, G3 we'll call it, doesn't want to have anything to do with it. And so what do? So we brought in professional management to run the business, but the family still owns it. And so are we going to be successful? We'll find out. One child may be better at running the business than the other 2 or 3 or 1. And I've got that situation going on, and there's a tremendous amount of sibling jealousy. So how do you deal with that? Maybe there's a way that we can buy out the intransigent sibling and make them feel that they're getting value for their future ownership of the business before they even get it. Who are the potential buyers? Again, we've talked about this in the past, but it's good to revisit it. There are strategic buyers. There are private equity buyers, people that have money to buy out a business and let you maybe continue controlling the business or bring in their own management. There's family offices, which I've sold businesses to family offices before. A little different model. And lastly, the management. The strategic partner, in my experience, generates the highest return for the seller. So if you have somebody that really wants to buy your business, and there's a strategic fit, either vertically or horizontally with the business, you're going to get a higher value for your business, more money, more cash. And they may be willing to deal with some of the warts or missing pieces in your business because there's a fit of a product or a service that you're providing that they can't provide, or it syncs up perfectly with their business. And depends on the situation. Strategic buyers, again, I think the highest return is generated by a strategic buyer. Private equity, I'm seeing a ton of private equity transactions. We've closed 3 here in the first quarter. There's a lot of cash available for investment by private equity. Who's private equity? Private equity is a limited liability company or a limited partnership that is formed by professional business managers, people who've run businesses in the past, or they're just investment bankers that have put together a fund of investors who want to go out and pursue a particular strategy in a particular industry. And so some private equity firms are massive. HIG out of Miami is an example, multi-billion-dollar private equity firm. And then you have many smaller ones like Enlightenment Capital out of Maryland, where we just sold a business to them last month, a government contractor. And it was very lucrative for the seller, and they're going to let the sellers run the business, at least for the time being. But private equity demands a lot more control of the business. So they're going to put the money in, they're going to let you take money out, but they're going to command a return on their investment, and they're going to be watching it very closely over time. The family office, we have some representatives of family offices here today. They may or may not actually invest in a business. Many family offices are the outgrowths of sales of other businesses. So they'll have their own individual family office, a single family office that you sold the business for $500 million. They now have a source of cash, and they will go out and invest in industries that are similar to the business that they sold. They're all across the country, and there's plenty of capital available for them. And they have a longer horizon, usually, for having to sell the business later on. So they'll usually invest and hold much more so than a private equity firm that wants to exit after a period of time.
So 20 years ago or so, these ESOPs, and I got involved in a few of them, only one ever really had any success. But it came down to the platform of finding out the practice eventually. Are ESOPs, are they as, oh, I'm sorry.
We're going to get there right now.
You know what, I didn't say that because I was looking.
I'm going to talk about ESOPs in 2 seconds. And ESOPs are prevalent, and they are thriving in this economy, believe it or not. Mainly because interest rates are so low, and the leverage that you can get out of an ESOP is tremendous. But we are going to focus on that. And really, in terms of making it affordable for management, that's one way to do it. So, in terms of management buying out a business, whether it's through an ESOP or using leverage that is outside of an ESOP, there's always strengths and weaknesses that management teams have that make it easy or hard to accomplish a buyout of a business. The strengths that they may have is they know the business. They know it inside and out, hopefully. And they have the knowledge as well as probably the energy, because they may be the next generation of management that was brought in by the founder to run the business. And if it's a good management team, they will have great success in running the business. The hard part, the weakness, is they may not have the capital. In fact, they usually don't have the capital. So the question is whether a bank or an outside investor will finance them to run the business and to give them a meaningful equity stake so that they'll want to stay on as management going forward. So meaningful equity stake could be anywhere from 5 to 10% all the way up to 30% for the management team, or if they own the whole thing, if they can finance it through a bank debt, they'll own 100%. They got to pay back the bank. So we sold a client last year. It was an accounting firm, and the younger generation basically raised the capital to buy out the founding partner, and they did it through bank debt because they just didn't have the cash themselves to do it.